It's been a week about hushed whispers about who said what to whom and when. It ends with a political conflict which is very, very noisy. A tale which may just be beginning. Last night, Downing Street briefed that the Prime Minister believed that Dominic Cummings was responsible for the leaks of his text messages with James Dyson, as well as for previous leaks, including over lockdowns last year.
Have you and other ministers broken the rules, Prime Minister?
If it was an attempt to move the story on from uncomfortable territory around Johnson's conversations with Dyson, then it has spectacularly backfired. In a sensational and unusually pithy blog post published this afternoon, Cummings makes a series of extremely serious allegations about the Prime Minister and his number 10 operation. First of all, with regards to the leak, Cummings said that he wasn't responsible for leaking the Dyson PM text in question, but does say, "I do have some WhatsApp messages between the PM Dyson forwarded to me by the PM. I'm also happy to publish or give to the Cabinet Secretary the PM Dyson messages that I do have, which concern ventilators, bureaucracy and COVID policy, not tax issues." All the more interesting, given that the Prime Minister at PMQs indicated that his text with Dyson might be published in full, but they haven't been. But this wasn't the only area dissected by Cummings, far from it. The number 10 story suggested that Cummings had leaked the news of a lockdown last year. Cummings said that that wasn't the case. The Cabinet Secretary told the PM that the leak was neither me nor the then Director of Communications, and that all the evidence definitely leads to Henry Newman and others in that office. The PM was very upset about this. He said to me afterwards, "If Newman is confirmed as the leaker, then I will have to fire him, and this will cause me very serious problems with Carrie, as they're best friends. Perhaps we could get the Cabinet Secretary to stop the leak inquiry?" I told him that this was mad and totally unethical, that he could not possibly cancel an inquiry about a leak that affected millions of people just because it might implicate his girlfriend's friends. Downing Street tonight said that the Prime Minister had never interfered with a leak inquiry, though that isn't quite the allegation that Cummings put. Henry Newman is a former special advisor to Michael Gove and now an advisor in number 10 and is close to Boris Johnson's fiancée, Carrie Symonds. What is Cummings hoping to achieve by all of this?
I've no reason to think Cummings is after anything other than revenge on Boris Johnson and his entire apparatus. It's part of the long story of the power struggle. It's also, I suppose, an ethics story about what politicians and ministers should and shouldn't properly do. And it's a story about how government should and shouldn't work.
And there was yet more. Boris Johnson had wanted to raise money for the refurbishment of his number 10 Downing Street flat via Tory party donors. He has since abandoned the scheme and paid for it himself. But Cummings says this: number 10 made accusations regarding me and leaks concerning the PM's renovation of his flat. The PM stopped speaking to me about this matter in 2020. As I told him, I thought his plans to have donors secretly pay for the renovation were unethical, foolish, possibly illegal, and almost certainly broke the rules on proper disclosure of political donations if conducted in the way he intended. I refused to help him organise these payments. He concluded, "It is sad to see the PM and his office fall so far behind the standards of competence and integrity the country deserves." If you think this is all just a typical Westminster number 10 political psychodrama, then consider this. It is hard to overstate the seriousness of these accusations, whatever you think of the accuser. Dominic Cummings was Boris Johnson's right hand, and yet here he is accusing the Prime Minister of lying, of behaving without integrity, of giving thought to override official processes in his own interest, of considering something that Dominic Cummings at least believed was potentially illegal, and Cummings hints there is more to come. It was only a year ago that the Prime Minister and Cabinet Ministers expended significant sums of political capital to keep Dominic Cummings in a job, and some believe significantly undermined their public health messaging into the bargain. And for what? Less than a year later, Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson seem intent on destroying each other.
If you're going to go to war with Dominic Cummings, go very heavily armed, because he will fire back. And one of his favourite sayings, I think it was originally Bismarck's, comes to mind, which is, with a gentleman and a half, with a pirate and a half. In other words, what Dominic Cummings is saying is, you fire at me, I will fire back at you double, and Downing Street will know that.
All of this ahead of the biggest set of elections before the next general election in just a fortnight's time. Perhaps none of it will break out of the bubble, but we can't know what Cummings knows and what he might yet share. It represents a deeply volatile element in an otherwise seemingly benign political environment for Boris Johnson. There's little doubt in Westminster tonight. It's war.
Lewis Goodall. Well, we did ask the government to come on tonight's programme, but they declined. Number 10 did say in a statement that at all times the government and ministers have acted in accordance with the appropriate codes of conduct and electoral law. Cabinet Office officials have been engaged and informed throughout, and official advice has been followed. They added that the PM has never interfered in a government leak inquiry.